hear a noise come from behind me, and the cat is on its back, completely straight in the bathtub.
In the bathtub?
Yes.
Hi. The sun was shining like right in my eyes there. All right, that's better.
Isn't it so much fun?
You guys haven't done so many. You guys can listen to one more question.
You called it the knock now?
No, I got it in my parents' bedroom. I didn't even look at it. I just left. No, I had it on the
Yeah, okay.
I can't even go behind
So weird, Isaac. I was looking for you in my third hour class yesterday. I was like looking to mark you F's and then realized you weren't in my third hour. Like, cause they're like, where you sit is like, I feel like it was like an open, I don't know, like somehow I like.
No, Preston I think was.
Oh, that's what it was. Preston wasn't in the right spot.
Wall, and so his seat was.
And I think in my head I put you kind of in that similar bubble as Preston. Sorry, because I think when I first. Oh, that was probably into it. But I was like, I went to go mark you F's.
Yesterday too, when I was like.
And then like this morning when you walked in, I was like, I was so Zippy is wild today.
Oh my god.
Like, we decided he needs a new tank.
Maybe he needs to get out.
Good. Do you need me to bring in my old tank for you?
Do you have an old tank that's bigger than that one?
Yeah.
He's like crazy.
Yeah. Do you just want to walk around today?
We should let him get the friends here.
I have one tank.
Straight up.
You have him say hi. Start shaking the line. He always hears us talking about him.
Justine, you're
You
gonna love
can say
the
hi
name
out
of
of
my
my
cat.
Sorry, this is what we're talking about. Zippy, he's being crazy today. Here we go. All right.
Never mind. I like
All right,
that.
just watch your feet. Sorry. In my fourth class, he walks around a lot, and a bunch of the girls are afraid of him.
Oh my god.
Really?
Yeah, the girls put their feet up on their desk so that he can't come closer. Sorry, Zip.
She's a turtle gonna get you.
Well, he's got kind of fancy shoes, so like. Ian, are you not a fan of the turtle? And of course, you're the one who sits closest to him. I'm sorry. All along, we found out that Ian's been terrified. Okay.
He's just sitting there. He's not even trying to move.
So guys, and I think maybe this is part of, Kylie, what I was mentioning to you, was on this problem, if you look at it, you might notice that, like, I think it's like, you want to combine those like terms maybe in the middle because they are like terms. However, in this types of problems, we want to leave it as 4 terms. And then we're going to do grouping.
Oh my gosh. I now am realizing what I did.
No, and it's not like wrong. You really were simplifying. You did the right, it's probably, I didn't mention it yesterday because no one suggested we do it, but I totally understand if you did that, so. But, okay. So, since it has 4 terms, we want to do grouping. So we're going to group these into 2 parts. So this first half, I'm going to look and see what I can factor out. And my attempt to not step on Zippy. So out of these 2 terms, 5 and 10, what can come out? So I'm going to take out a 5, right? And then also an x. So I'm taking a 5x out of these 2. And so we'll be left with x. minus 2. Trying to test how well you guys have, or how good of attention spans you all have.
What happens if he just walks out the door and starts roaming down the hall and we don't realize it?
I don't have a
So,
very good.
he's not super fast, so. Now the one day I had my puppy in here and I was like doing work in here and she went in the hall. There was no one else in the school. She went in the hallway and I just assumed she was like right down the hallway, and I went out there and she was nowhere to be found. So like I texted Mr. Donnie, he was in the gym, and I was like, I lost Mookie. And he's like, how did you lose the dog? Like, you have one thing to watch. Like, and I was like, no, I was doing work. But she had run. She was in Mrs. Weeks' hallway. So I think she got turned around.
Like feet clacking down the hall.
She was being really sneaky.
Like
so
a mile away when they walk because their paws just go.
she's real tip tappy. Like
Oh,
walks
probably
around fancy.
super
That was
fun.
not your
Chasing a dog down the hall.
She loves being in the school. Like, she walks around like she owns the place. She's like real. The baseball boys have seen her in the building. Like, she loves it. So we always talk about we should have doggy play dates sometime when we have a work day.
Yeah, that was his
Everyone should bring in
Oh
their
yeah,
dogs.
Mrs. Hoffman and Miss Miller are getting puppies from the same litter like this week, right?
That's Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
You should bring your dog.
I
We're
know.
gonna bring them both in because they're sisters, and so then they can see each other again.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so out of these two terms, easily distracted today, sorry.
Everyone's
Squirrel.
What? Where?
So we're dividing by a -3 here. Now the reason I took out the -3 is because I'm looking ahead and I want these to match. So I want it to be an x there, so I'm going to get rid of that -3. And then 6 divided by a -3 is a -2. Now some of you guys, I pointed this out to you, guys got to this point and then you stopped. We have to go one step further. So at this point, we have the same thing twice. We have to write that x minus 2, and we're taking it out. It's like we're factoring it out of those two terms. So then we're just left with 5x minus 3.
My brain, I'm telling you, my brain does not work when I'm at home.
No. Well, get your homework done here then at least.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Because and the test, you always do well on the test, so at least it's working for the test, so it's good.
That's probably because my sister won't shut up.
There's that. Distracting siblings.
And I've got like 10 different animals right here.
Oh, and of course, what is
Yeah.
he going through?
It's like, do you ever met someone who doesn't like cats, and like the cat will go and find you, like, because Mr. Don, who's super allergic, and every place we go that has cats, like the cats like jump on his lap and are like rubbing on his neck, and so.
My dad did
They always come sit around me.
Zippy asked.
I heard her down the hall.
I know.
My
Yeah.
dad didn't want the cat, and the cat loves it.
Of course, like there's like memes about that, like Dad and the cat he never wanted, and like
Yeah.
the cat's like
We just finished.
laying on his.
He might miss him. He looks like he's taken off.
That's his, like he likes that hiding spot. You know, he thinks he's some sort of sneaky. Oh no,
Oh,
left turn.
go back for sick Ian, sick Ian.
Ian hates you. All right, so guys, we're gonna talk about these steps. Like I said, definitely a tough idea, so I might put Zippy back in because we probably need this to be a little more focused than this. So this first problem, I'm on any type of these. Now, if you guys notice, these are different than 2 days ago. So remember, if you guys, we talked about the other day that if we have x squared plus bx plus c, we want to multiply to c, add to b. We talked about that last time, or 2 times ago. These are a little bit different because there's a number in front of the x squared. Sorry, Zippy, I'm locking you back up.
No.
We'll let him out for homework. Sorry, buddy.
He's driving. He's enjoying his freedom.
Yeah. But I'm distracted, so I can't imagine you guys are all. Okay. Now these are different because there's a number in front of x squared. So we can't do these the same way we did those previous ones, because if you try to multiply to get 28 and add to get 10, you're not going to find anything that works. as far as I know. I can't think of anything. So that doesn't work in this case. So what we have to do is we have to take into account there are 2 in front. So in these types of problems, what you're going to do first is you're going to check for a GCF. So if we're able to, we're going to factor. When we say we're checking for a GCF, it's among all the terms, which is why we practiced that again yesterday on our Kahoot. So among the 2, 10, and 28, can anything come out of those? Yeah, but 2 is common. So I can take out a 2. So I'm going to divide a 2 out of all 3 terms. So I was able to divide everything by 2. Once I'm at that point, then this becomes a problem that we learned on Monday, where if we now have the x squared by itself, now we can do those 2 sets of parentheses. So if we have just an x squared now, then we can do the type of factoring you guys really liked the other day. I think you really liked it anyway. Where you multiply to get c and add to get b. And that's what we have in this case. So I'm still going to keep that 2 out in front. But we can now factor this because I have the x squared. I know it has to be x times x. I want to multiply to negative 14, but add to negative 5. So multiply to negative 14, but add to negative 5. Negative 1 and 14, negative 2 and 7, negative 7 and 2, negative 14 and 1. So which one gives me a negative 5? Yep. So the negative 7 times 2 will give me a negative 5 when I add them. So if that's the case, these are pretty easy to do. We factor out that variable or that value first, and then we're just able to factor it as we typically would. Okay. Now, not all of them end up doing that, so that won't always be the case. So these first 2 steps, sometimes they're going to kind of become null and void, like it's not going to be helpful. So if you guys look at the second example here, if I look for a GCF among the 3 terms, is there anything that's common among all 3 terms? This 5 goes into itself in 10, but to go into 27? No, so there's no GCF other than 1. So we can't do the GCF factoring here. So we're stuck. So we have to learn a new method today. So what we're basically going to do is kind of mix what we were talking about the other day with the multiply to get C, add to get B, with a grouping. So I'm just trying to decide if we should practice that a little bit more first. Let's actually get into this right away. Okay, so if we're kind of stuck, like we're not able to factor out a GCF, what we have to do now is take into account that we have this 5 here. We have to kind of use that to figure out how to factor this. But we're going to use grouping and we're going to use this multiply to C, add to B idea. So what I do is this is kind of an organizational thing here. So if we're still in the form like this, so I'm trying to point out the difference between steps 2 and 3. So in step 2, we had like a 1x squared. Here now we have a number in front of the x squared. So this is a different type of problem. So I'm going to use this big X thing. What that's going to be for is it's going to help us to organize things. So, and I'll show you guys how we're going to do this. On the top, we're going to multiply the first and the last term together. So I'm going to take ax squared and multiply by c. And again, this is going to be weird until you guys have done it a bunch of times. So writing this down and doing this is going to be essential. So those of you guys who are online, you have to make sure you're writing this down and practicing this with us. Otherwise, this is not something you're going to figure out on your own. It's a tough idea until you get comfortable with it. So all of you guys in here taking good notes. All right, on the bottom, we're going to put the bx. So this is going to go on the bottom. So we're going to do that over here. So again, on the top, I'm multiplying the first and last term together. So 5x squared times 10. What do we get? What's 5x squared times 10? 50x squared. The bottom is going to be the bx, so that's going to be that middle term. So this is going to go on the bottom, 27x. Now, just like we did on Monday, if you guys remember that multiply to c, add to b, we're just changing that up a little bit. We're going to multiply to get the top number, but add to get the bottom. So multiply to get this, and then add to get the number on the bottom. And I'm going to put those two numbers on either side of this x. Just kind of, the x is just kind of an organizational tool, so you're not. So we want to multiply to get 50x squared, but add to get 27x. So multiply to 50, add to 27. So 1 and 50, no. 2 and 25. Does that add? Yep, that's it. So 2 and 25, or 25 and 2. It doesn't matter the order you do these in. I typically put the bigger one first. Now, what we're doing with that is, that's not really doing anything for our problem. This, again, this is just an organizational tool. What we're going to do is, instead of the 27x, we're going to write these two terms. So we're going to replace that 27 with the 25 and the 2. So we're going to rewrite this equation using our new factors. And I'll show you guys what I mean. We're going to rewrite the equation with our new factors. So what I have in the box is going to replace what I have in the box here. Now the 5x squared is going to stay as it is. So the 5x squared is going to stay, but this 27, I'm going to replace it with these two. So I'm going to write a positive 25x and a positive 2x. The last term is going to stay as it is. So take a minute to look at what I have. The yellow should be the same as the black. Technically, it's the same equation, it's just written a little bit differently. Because 25 and 20, or 25 and 2, if I put them together, would be 27, which is what you did on your homework, which was frustrating to you. But that's the right idea that you're thinking there. Why is this better than what we had before? What do we know what to do with this now? We know how to do grouping. We just learned that yesterday. So we're able to now group this equation because it has 4 terms. So we wanted to have 4 terms rather than just the 3. So now we're going to do grouping with this. factor by grouping them. So we're going to be able to do this by grouping. And again, these are always going to work that kind of slick way that it's always going to have the same thing twice. As long as we are able to find factors, it's going to work. So out of these two, I can take a 5x. So I'm going to divide that 5x out. So this is going to be left with x plus 5. 25 divided by 5. Out of the next two, what can I take out? Just a 2, yep. So positive 2. Oops, that's really bad parenthesis. So we're going to divide these each by 2. And now we have the same thing twice. We have the x plus 5. And if we take that out of there, we're left with 5x. Oops. We're left with 5x plus 2. Now, if you guys wanted to check this, if you're like, this seems a little fishy, because this is, again, I mentioned this before, this is probably one of those like kind of new mathy ideas. This is probably the only thing that I learned to teach after I became a teacher. Like, before I became a teacher, what I used to do with this is I just did FOIL a bunch of times and guessed and checked until I found it. If you look in your textbook, your book is going to do this in a different way. This is probably the only thing I kind of do in a different way than I learned it, 20-something years ago. So just know that this is something that if you brought this home to your parents, they probably have not seen this before. I got taught this by another math teacher. So I'm just going to give you guys the heads up on that. There are other ways to do this type of problem, but over time, this has kind of been the way that's made the most sense. So I mean, Miss Miller has been in my room, and I don't know if she'd done it this way before, but I learned this.
Trial and error.
Yeah. So if you look in your book, the book will show you guys. Basically, they'll write this out a bunch of different ways and just keep doing FOIL until they find the one that works. So if you FOILed this through, it would equal what we have up there. That's kind of the gist of what we want to have happen. Let's do one more and then we'll take a break because you guys have been taking notes a long time, but and we can take a non-math break just because this is some pretty heavy stuff. So don't forget the first step though. Look for that GCF first. That's going to save you a lot of time when it comes up. Now, a lot of the ones on here, there's no GCF. I'll give you that heads up. I think there is, I think there are 2 on here that have a GCF, but most of them don't. So, if you look, 3 terms, no GCF. 3 doesn't go into all 3. So step 2 is kind of null and void because we can't do that x squared. There's a number in front of that x squared. So instead we have to do this thing. And again, the x thing isn't necessary. It's just a way to organize your thoughts. So what I do on the top is I multiply the first and last terms together. So those 2 get multiplied together, and that's what goes on the top. So 3x squared times 10 is 30x squared. On the bottom, we're going to put that 17x. I'm going to put that in a square so that we remember that's what's going to get replaced later on. So the first and last term are going to stay as they are in the equation. That middle term gets changed. So I have to think of something that multiplies to 30 but adds to give me 17. Yeah, Ian? 15 times 2. And again, I like writing it where the bigger one is first, so 15x and 2x. But I'll tell you guys, that's kind of one of the, that was one of the first questions that I asked of the teacher who taught this to me. I was like, what if you go in the other order? And she was like, try it, and it works. Like, so just understand that either order works. So this is what I'm replacing that middle term with. So that's going to go in place of the 17. Everything else will stay the same. Just so you guys know. So this is my new equation. So I'm going to write it in black. So it's a new equation here. So the 3x squared stays. The 15x, the 2x changes at 17, and the 10 stays. So you only change that middle term. So we really want it to be the same equation, just written a little bit differently. And we like it as 4 terms because now we can do grouping. So out of those first 2 terms, we can take out a 3x. And again, you guys have to walk through and practice this. It's not going to just sink in your head if you just listen. This is going to be 5. Out of the next 2, I can take out a 2, write a positive 2. X plus 5. And now I have the same thing twice. So I have x plus 5. I'm going to pull that out here. If I take it out of each of these, I'm left with 3x plus 2. All right. So we want a little break here.